All right, good. Now let's go here. Let's share. All right. See my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Welcome back, everybody. This is lesson number 22. This is your final summary and review. Okay. Tons of pages, things that we've already gone over. We all know what our groups are, group 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The active and the passive is information that you guys already know. In this, they're going to give you a categories and the identifying signs, which you have studied from the group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and active and passive, ways that they were done in simple, forceful, causative, and on oneself. I would say for us is that what you have, this is based on memory. This is all based on memory, and it's based on you always being involved in the language. One of the things that I recommend that all of us would continue to do is to use the tools that we have, which one is called Bible Hub. Bible Hub is a good one. I find errors with them though, so I'm not saying they're 100%. They're probably around 97%. And then I'll find some things that are not really right with that. So, you'll find that out. But basically what you need to do is make yourself familiar with the Hebrew language. And the only way you could do that is through Bible Hub, through going through your Torah. Doesn't mean that you have to read the whole entire Torah at this time through, your Torah portions through the Bible Hub, but at least read a couple of lines so you can continue to familiarize yourself with some of those things. And so you're going to see these marks there. You're going to see these identifying signs. Also, too, there are some grammatical things that you're going to see that you are not familiar with. And so that might kind of throw you for a loop, be like, well, wait a minute. This is a kamates right here. And, this is supposed to be simple. And I don't understand why they're saying that it's this, it's this way. So everything that you see here is just the beginning. That's all. This is just the beginning to familiarize you with the past, the present, and the future, and the different letters and the different markings that they're using, okay, what they will call the Nakud. So, but this is a great foundation, all right? But you still have to learn how the structure of the language works, which we're going to be looking at that in a few more weeks, okay? So this is your final summary and, of course, your table. Here's what the table is going to look like. I'm going to send this over to you. It breaks down every verb category, its group, its form, how it's being done, simple, forceful, causative on oneself. And then what they've done is they've put in different verbs inside of this table in order for you to see how the actual pieces are working. So this is why they highlight, these are bold, because they're showing you, okay, what we're going to do in the present tense is we're going to make this bold so you'll know, okay, that's the passive and this is the way it looks. So every mark that you saw on the first one, and let me just go back right quick to show you, everything that we just seen on this one here on the bottom, what they've done is they're going to put these marks, these identifying signs in place where you would see it with a verb. Okay. So what they're going to show you is like, hey, that's present tense. This only makes sense when it's attached to a verb. Okay, so signs, study them, look at them, try to memorize them, but you're only going to have so much success with that, because they're just marks. If they don't mean anything to you, they're just signs. That's all. They're just supposed to point you to something, because that's what a sign is. So here in this in particular chart that you're going to, or table that you're going to get, is going to give you some root words that you're going to be able to put those markings and those identifying signs with, and then it gives you the translation and the meaning of the verb, okay? Then it's going to give you some more pointers about how, when you're looking at something, how you want to look at these things, and you want to look at them slowly and you want to look at them carefully. and you do this over time. So that's not a big deal. And then of course, this sheet right here, page 147, is going to, go over what we just talked about, how to look at that chart, which it's a lot of information, something that you're just going to have to read through. But the part that I want to focus on for your lesson tonight is basically one of the best parts of the language, which is how to foolproof, your method of translating a Hebrew verb. I want you to be able to understand that there's 4 steps that you look at when you're breaking down or translating a Hebrew verb. And so with those steps, the first step that we're going to find here, and this is like foolproof. I mean, I've used this before, and I've used it in debates, conversations. You're going to look like a genius. Everybody's going to like, this person's so smart, and what they will call this right here, when they talk about translating, essentially what this is called parsing. I don't know if you guys ever heard of parsing. It's how to parse, okay? And what you're doing is you're breaking everything out. So we're going to talk about those steps today. Step 1, step 2, 3, and 4, okay? As you see, step number 1 is always to find the 3 root letters of the verb, okay? In my teachings, I told you that you could be the 2, which is the parent, because you're going to find some that are 2. No doubt, you're going to find 2 letters, but a majority of them are going to be the 3 letters. And the 3 letters are going to tell you that it's a child root. And if one of those child root letters are not there, it's going to be an adopted root. But the case in point is, if you know what the root is, if you know what those 3 letters are, then pretty much you'll know what the root is. So that's the first step that you want to do, is find out what the root is, okay? Just like when you come to any type of problem in your life, what you want to find out is what is the root of the problem. Okay, so always remember that. Find the root. Okay, that means that you have to kind of dig, because to find a root on anything, on a plant, you're going to have to dig. All right, but if you've already been familiar with the roots, and your roots are going to be your vocabulary. So if you have your vocab down, and I throw up a word that looks like this, you automatically know what it is. If I throw in this, even if you knew the sounds, sh, shamar, you already know. Okay. So when you know your vocabulary, which you have hundreds of vocabulary that you have, okay, then you'll know what your roots are. That's number 1. Step number 2 is you're going to find the tense of the verb. What do I mean by tense? Where there's only 3 different types of tenses, okay, that you're going to have to look at. And they're always going to be in the past. What's the next one?
Present.
Present. And what's the next one? Future. Okay, so that's not hard, is it? Okay, so you got 3 letters, and then you have 3 tenses. Okay, simple. Okay, so it's going to be in the past, it's going to be in the present, it's going to be in the future. It can't be anywhere else. Now, the third step is you're going to find the person. So how many people do you have there? First person, second person, third person. There is no fourth, there is no fifth. It's first person, second person, third person. Okay? The first person is always going to be common, singular. Second person can be masculine or feminine, singular or plural. Third person, okay, can also be masculine or feminine, and it's always going to be in the plural. Okay? So that's never going to change, ever. So 3 root letters, that's your thing, that's your vocabulary, that's your root. Past, present, and future, that's your tense. Finding a person, first person, second person, third person, who am I talking to, right? And then finally, you're going to find the form, and we're going to talk about that form, okay, by using the table. Now, when it talks about these steps, you cannot break down parse or translate a verb without following these steps exactly the way that they have it outlined. If you try to do it any other way, you're going to get lost in the sauce. You're going to get lost, okay? Because this is the way that they put the puzzle together, okay? So we're going to show you a number of examples using this 4-step method, okay? This that they're going to do. So they have some different examples that we're going to go over right quick. And we're going to show you how simple it is. It's not difficult, okay? It's very important. All right, so our first example is going to be this one called Hilbashti, okay? So the step number 1 is looking for the root. The root itself is lavash, right here. That's the reason why they have it in bold, okay? 3-letter root, which means to wear clothes, okay? The tense is found in the past, present, or future. That's what we're looking for. This in particular one is in the past. And that's because the taf with the yod is added onto the end of the root. Remember, so if something's on the end, it's in the past. If something is in the front, then it is in the future. Well, you say, well, I see this letter right here that's in front, so that will kind of throw me off a little bit because it seems like there's a letter in front of the root. So there's a letter in front and a letter in back. Which one do I go with? Well, because it has this ending, this what they would call suffix that's added to the end, they don't add this suffix, okay, to a word that is in a future tense. They only add this in particular ending, which is that tav and that yod, to something that's in the past, okay? And when you have your chart, you can go back and look at your table in your chart of those suffixes that are added to the end to let you know that something's in the past tense. Well, you got T, you got ta. They don't add ta to the end of a word if it's in the future tense. They'll never add it. They'll never add new on the end of a word if it's in the future tense. That's a past tense suffix that they're adding to the back of that root. Okay, so I remember I sent you last week, I think, a color chart, and on that color chart you can see these endings, and it'll let you know, like when this ending's here, it's telling you that this is in the past. Okay, so you have to know your endings, but once you know those pieces to your puzzle, you're fine. Okay, step number 3, the person. And the person in this case is the tav, and the tav on the end in the past tense is I. Okay, so I, the first person singular, is doing the action. It doesn't give you whether it's male or female. If it is a male or female, it will be disclosed in its text. It will let you know, within the syntax of the sentence, right? So this is an action is being done. And then, depending on who it is or who's saying it, it might say, Wayomer Yawa, then the Yahweh is the subject, and then it'll let you know that I, when he says I did something, you'll know who the subject is based on what the context is saying. So the last step is to understand the form. Now, this is the part that's, I would say, it's not difficult, but it's a challenge because you have to know what your forms are, okay? You got to know your forms. So as you can see, systematically, everything is about different pieces. So you got your roots, you got your tenses, you have your persons, and now the last part is your form. The form of a verb is identified by looking at what remains after. So everything, so once we found out who the root is, that's scratched off the list. That's the first step that we took. We scratched it off the list. Next thing we scratch off, we find out what the tense is. Oh, it's in the past tense. That's off the list. Okay. Also the person within the tense, we found out who the person is. That's off the list. So the only thing that's left is this letter right here. That's the only thing that's left. So that is your form. That's what's left. The last thing you want to look at is the form. Because if you don't, and you take the person after the form, you'll get confused. It'll send your mind somewhere totally different. Okay. So it lets us know that this extra hey with this correct yod, this little dot underneath it, was added to the front of root. All we have to do now is to go to our table, okay, and find out what, as what is its identifying sign? Where does it fall? What category does it fall? We know we're in the past. We know this. So let's go look at it right quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our table and we're going to look for the one with the hey. Going back to this table right here, and we're going to go look for the one with the hey with the one dot. And there it is. So we found out, number one, we found out what our root is. We understand that. We understand that it was in the past because of the letter that they added on to the end, the tense. We also understand the person who did it. Now, the last part is the identifying sign. The identifying sign is pointing us to this hey with the dot in it. And we know that that is in group number 3. And group number 3 is a causative, but also too is there's two things that can, two different ways that this verb can be done. This causative action can be done. It could be done actively or it could be done passively. Okay, meaning it could be done unto somebody. Okay, so one is actively doing something, causing someone to do something, and the other one is something is happening to you, someone else is making you do something. So this one right here is what's left. It tells us that this is in group number 3 is causative and it's active. And that's the part that you have to understand. So your signs here are going to point you to the type of action. That's literally what these signs are for, because that's all they are. And what does a sign do? Remember, we understand signs are, we can look at it from the Aleph Tav position. It's a direct object marker, which points you to somewhere. So this points us to what type of action, causative, active. So we would know that somebody who's doing this, I am the one actively causing someone else to do an action. See, that's what that sign means. So that's basically what these are. These are nothing but markers to point you to how something is being done. This is saying that action was done simple. This is saying, oh, this is present tense and it's simple. It's a simple way that's happening. It's in group number 1. So you got to find out, if it's in your group, it's talking to you. These are your signs. So when we think about signs too, often we get a little intimidated because we're like, wait a minute, I don't see these in my everyday life. So what I would do is I would get a little sticky pad, right? And because you don't see these on your that little chart that I gave you. So what you could put these on little sticky notes and you could put these around different places in your house, things that you presently want to do. You can take this and put it somewhere where you want. If something that you want to do in the future, take that little sticky note and go put that there. So for example, if you got to mail something, right? Then you say, okay, I got to do this in the future. I will. So what you would do is you would take this right here, this in particular identifying sign, and put it on a sticky note and put it on something that you're going to do in the future. And so after you keep doing this for a certain amount of time, then you'll know if you did something in the past and it was a very simple way that you've done something, it's already done. Take that, after you read a book or after you did your laundry, you would take the laundry out. This is in the past. It's already done. You did it in a simple way. Take that little sticky note and put it there. That's just an idea that I have. Okay. So try to apply it to your life in some type of way. And so, just like we have stop signs, we got yield signs, we have don't turn right, no U-turn, those things. That's what these are. There's 29 of these right here. There's 29 signs. Okay. So find out what those 29 are and, you guys got me thinking. You got me thinking. So use it in whatever kind of way that you can to memorize it. Because guess what? It is what it is, and it's not going anywhere. Okay. So that's what you're going to have to do when you come to find out your identifying sign. Right? Where's this at? Okay. Going back to where we learned. Any questions so far? All right. So now that we've looked at this, right, and we found Because the question is says, as we spoke out in the beginning of the lesson, you have to be very careful when you're looking at this because you could mistranslate something. You could put something in the present when it's really in the past because you just remember the one dot. So you have to be careful, okay? So here is the proper translation down at the bottom. After you break everything down is I caused. The reason why we know it's caused is because I is that T right there and that here is caused. Okay, so it's literally telling us how to translate too. So what you want to do in translation for translational purposes, and I'm going to make this a little bit larger so I can help you understand how to read it and understand it. Okay, so sorry for it being on the angle. It's hard just taking a picture of it, but I caused. I caused. So the first thing you want to look at when you're translating is who's doing it. I. You have to address the person, right? I'm the one who did it. Okay. Well, how did I do it? Second, I caused. And then you look at the root final, okay, which is your number 3. Then you're gonna look at that. So back end, front end, and then this. Okay. When you're reading it this way. Hilavashti. When you're translating it, you have to translate it back this direction. But you couldn't say I dress caused. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so what I'm recommending for us to do is to say, address the person first. I caused, and then you caused this. And as to wear clothes, I caused to wear clothes. Who? I caused somebody to wear clothes, meaning I dressed whoever you're talking about. And of course, this action will be directed towards, which is an arrow, a direct object marker, towards the object of your verb. This is the reason why it's called a direct object marker. That means this at right here, or the word the or the with a hey is pointing you directly to the object of your action. Okay. I know they don't have that right here, but I'm just trying to put you up on it so when you read it, you'll understand. Okay. So that's how you do that. Okay. So I caused someone else. Okay. If it was something you did to yourself, of course, it'd be a different identifying sign. It'd be something else. It'll be a different type of marker on the front of it. All right. And here are all the other examples. Okay. The guard to Akilu, right? Yeah, Akilu. So let's do with that one. I like this one. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to step number 1, you're going to find the root. That's a call. Okay. It's not this whole thing here. Because why isn't it? Why isn't it the aleph, the kaf, the yod, and the lamed? Why isn't it not that? Why is that not the root?
4 letters.
Thank you, Dr. Yared, because it has 4 letters. So what we want to do is find that root. That's why they got it in bold. So we found the root. It's a call. It means to eat. We know our vocabulary. Then we go, okay, so now that's off the table. Next step is the tense. Is it past, present, or future? It's the future tense. Okay, but again, we got letters on the front and the back. So how do we know? How will we know that this is in the future? Because there are some letters that have there on the front, like you just saw with the hey, that it wasn't future, it was in the past. Well, the answer to that is when a yod is attached to any word, it's always going to be a future tense letter. That's why they're telling you that the yod at the beginning tells you it's a future tense. Okay, and also too, the color chart that I gave you, gives you the combination. You're going to have some combinations to be a yod and then a wall on the end like this, like you see right there. You're going to have a tav and a yod on the end, you see? And that's the future tense. So when you know your pieces, you'll be like, okay, I know that's a future tense. Okay. So you're going to have a combination of different, so this is a piece right here. It's not just separate. It comes together. This comes together. The tav and the yod comes together. That lets you know that it's a feminine, right? Second person, you, feminine. Okay. So all these different things you have to be familiar with. All right. So what we understand too is that they have this right here, which we're going to get to in a second. All right. So we know it's in a future tense. So we found that out. The next thing is we want to know the person. Okay. So the person here is identified as they, and it's masculine. Okay. And the reason why we know it's they and we know it's masculine, what part of these two letters tell you that it's masculine? Is it
Yod.
It is the yod. So if the yod is the masculinity of it, right? Then what would the wa with this oo sound right here? That would be the they. So it's letting us know that this group is a third person. Plural. Masculine plural. They. And that's the package that it comes in. It comes in a yod and then a wa right here. You'll see it on your chart that I gave you. And then you just put the root right in between it, and that will let you know what it is. It's just putting pieces to a puzzle together, knowing your identifying signs. Okay. Now they said, well, what about the form? So let's scratch everything that we have out, and then we'll find out what it is. Okay. So we know what that is. We got rid of this, and we got rid of this. All we are left with is a yod in the middle of this word. So is it in the present tense? Is it in the future tense? Where is it? Okay. What is it? How do we know? It says if we go to the future tense column, we see that they're looking at this form, this identifying sign. Let me erase this stuff so you can see what he's saying. So they're telling us that identifying signs are not just letters, but they're actually vowels as well. Okay. So it says, if we go to the future tense column, we will see that this in particular sign of group number 3 active form, that's what we'll see. Someone is causing someone else to do the action. Let's go verify. I knew it was a Hiphael because of this, which they didn't share with you, is the yod. They want us to look more carefully at this sign. Okay. That's what they want us to look at. So let's go look at it. It said it's in future tense column. So you go back when you get this, and get out of here right quick. You'll go back and you're going to look at that first table that we looked at right here. All right. There it is. Future tense. Right here, active. That's the piece. Just like this was the piece on the first one, this is the piece on the second one. This is your identifying signs. So they're telling us that your yod with this symbol right here is going to let us know that it's in group number 3. It's in future. We not only know that it's in future because of the yod being attached to the front of it, right? But we also are going to know that what form it's in when it has this underneath it. And we're going to know that this is active. These down here are going to be your passive signs. Okay. And what the reason or the purpose behind everything is to get you familiar with looking at it and breaking it down and chopping it out to find out where is the form. You want to, so the focus is on the form. You see? The focus is on the forms, and that's where you're going to spend a majority of your time. Okay. So it is causative, meaning you're causing someone else because you're actively doing the action. Okay. So the ya akilu is they, right? Future tense. They will cause someone else to eat, meaning they will feed. Okay. The will, of course, is the future tense. So question for you right quick. What letter tells us that is they?
Wow.
Thank you. What tells us that is masculine?
Yod.
Thank you. What tells us will?
Yeah.
Thank you. What tells us cause?
The three dots.
Under the
Off
yod.
right here, and this too is identify. This is another thing that they didn't share, but it tells you that that's a causative. Okay, because you'll see that with a hit file. What tells us that it's to eat?
The three-letter root.
Thank you. That's it. So do you see the process? So once your brain starts getting used to doing this, then you're gonna be fine. It's not gonna become nothing to you, okay, at all. And the more you do it, you'll be able to identify and say, oh, I know what the root is. Step number one, the root is a call. Step number two, what tense is it in? It's in the past tense. How do you know it's in the past? Because it has a past tense ending on it. That's why they got it in bold. Okay, because you can't put that on the end of a future tense. It'll only go in the past. Step number three, the person, the you. How do you know it's masculine plural? How do you know that's masculine plural?
Because of the ending 10.
M, yes.
Yeah.
That masculine right there. And we know it's plural, right? Because of the ending. But also too, how do we know that it's you?
Oh, because of the hay. Right.
The tav. It's past tense. Remember, the tav can be in the front, right? And it's you. And that you could be singular or it could be plural. When it's on the end of a verb, these will not be on the end of a noun. They're only going to be on the end of a verb. Remember, as I told you, because it took me some time to figure this out, the coughs are on the end of nouns. So if you got Kim, that's plural, and it's on the end. It's on the end of a noun. It's a noun that's on here. If it's a verb, it's going to have the temp. It's going to have this right on the end of it. This means you, plural, and this means you, plural. So on your nouns, you're going to have the cough. Okay. And how do I want you to remember that? I want you to remember that by the cough right here being the palm of your hand. And you only put people, places, and things in your hand. You understand possession. Okay. When you're talking about a verb, you can remember it by a tav being a mark. It means this is just a mark. I'm marking you. You're the one who's doing the action. Okay. So, you know, agriculturally, I use agriculture to remind me of why they're using the cough and why they're using the tav. Okay. So one, you plural is for the nouns, and verbs will only have this you here for Tim. If it's them instead of you, it'll be a hey, it'll be him. It'll be him. If it's female, it'll be hen. Okay. See? So you got to look at those things too, because we're talking about roots in terms of verbs. To do something, to eat. Okay. But also too, we know that you can turn around and use a root before a noun, the same root to eat in a verb can also be used as for food if I wanted to turn it into a noun. If I wanted to turn this into a noun, a person, a place, or a thing, I would call this, if it has to do with eating, then I know that's food. So you'll see it as food. To eat is the verb. The noun is the food. See, and that's the beauty of the Hebrew language, because you can have the same root that can be a verb or it can be a noun, depending on how it's being used in context. And how do you know how it's being used in context? Well, you would know based on what's being added to the end or what's put on the front of it. Because guess what they don't do? When you have a root that is a noun, they're not going to add on any type of verbal endings. Okay. These are verbal endings. That's why they're using that. If it was a different end, a root ending, that it was not a ta, and it was a ket, or excuse me, a kaf, then you would know, oh, that is a noun. Okay. So your endings tell you things, and your signs tell you things. Okay. So learning the roots, that's the easy part. Learning the endings, that's a little more challenging. The person, super easy. We'll know that, right? Step number 4, that's where your challenge is. Step number 4 is where the challenge is for the language. Okay. That's where it's going to be. So a majority of your time should be trying to always memorize the forms, because that's the toughest part. So in this case, since we got everything done, it says the form is identified by this, and they got it in bold. This is what's left after everything is left. So what does S mean? So what do? We're going to have to go back and look at that chart, because we know that this is in the past. We've identified it by this root ending being on it. So we know it's in the past. We just don't know, is it active? Is it passive? Because it could be active, it could be passive. And where is it going to be found? Is it going to be found in group number 1, group number 2, group number 3? Is it going to be a simple? Is it going to be forceful? Is it going to be, causative? Where's it going to be? So it says, if we go back and we look at that past tense table, we're going to see that this is the sign of the group number 3. This is group number 3, which is causative, right? But also too, we got to understand that it's passive. Well, they're going to tell us why it's passive. And I already know what it is. It's going to be this in particular sound or mark that lets us know that it's in passive, right? So it's actually someone is being caused to eat something. So let's go look at it right quick, and let's go see. So we're looking at the hay with the comates underneath it. Here you go. Going down here, we know it's in the past. We've already identified that. Now we're going to go and say, okay, it's in the past. What was it? Oh, it was a hay. Okay. There it is right there. Oh, it's causative and it's passive. That means that they're not actively making someone to do something. It's actually happening to them. They're being caused to do something. Okay. So who is being caused? Well, according to our end, we had the Tim. So we know it's you are being caused. Plural, masculine. Let's go see if Dawit was right. Yes. Here you go. Now looking at it here on the bottom, it says here, you, masculine plural, were, that's that passiveness. You were caused to eat. You were fed by somebody else. Okay. So this right here is the you plural. Caused is right here. Were is right here. To eat is right here. That's what it is. Okay, so in order to translate it, you were passively were caused to eat. You were fed. Okay. This is a really good exercise to do. So utilize your tools that you have. And of course, this is your one right here called ma'akilim. Okay. There's a root, a call. Now we got some other letters, right? So we got step 2, we're going to find the tense. They're going to tell us what the tense is. When we look at this letter, the mem, we know, oh, that's present tense. It's present tense. That means actually happening in the mind of the writer or the person who's narrating the story or whoever wrote it out at that time. It's happening. So it's present tense. And so that mem is added onto the front of that root. Okay. But also too, we got some other letters. So let's look at the eam. The eam is added onto the end of the verb. And so we know eam is plurality. We know that. So no past tense or future tense verbs have an eam added onto the end of the root. No past or future. So this solidifies the fact that it is in the present tense. The person is masculine, and we know that by the eam. Okay, this could be we, masculine, or you, masculine plural, or they. It could mean any of those, right? So we would have to look at how the word is being used in the pasuk, meaning in the sentence, because in Hebrew, pasuk is sentence. That's what pasuk is. And if it's pasukim, then what does that mean?
Sentences.
Sentences, right? Because you got that eam, that means plurality. Okay, so we look at the pasukim or the pasuk, and then we'll know exactly which person is doing the action. So context would actually tell us who it is that's doing the action. Here, we don't know who's doing the action except for that we, or it could be we, because we is plural. It could be you, masculine plural, because that's what eam could be. It could be they, because it's plural, you see? So context or text will tell you that in that sentence. It will let you know. So the fourth step, of course, is the form. We know what our form is. It's a mem that's added onto the front, but it's not just the mem. And I got to correct myself on this. It's this whole thing. It's the mem and that mark. Don't miss that. Don't let my bad habits get you, because I just look at, oh, it's a mem in the front. Easy, present tense. But one of the things I'm working on is identifying these signs. Okay, so I don't have them all mastered. I got a lot of them, but I don't have them all. So that mem with the pathak underneath it is what we need to be looking at. That is the sign. The sign is not just the mem by itself. It's actually the mem and that in particular vowel. So that's added. So if we go back to our present tense column, which we have done in the past, and we look at it, we can see that this in particular is the sign to group number 3. And it's someone causing someone else to do an action of eating. And because it says, please note that there is also another sign. Now they're going to break it down. I've been saying it, but now they mention it. Okay. So group number 3 does have that additional sign, which I had alluded to earlier when I said that this yod automatically tells you if it is involved in any kind of root, it should tell you that something is being caused. So it won't just be the hey on the front of the word. It'll be the yod as well. It's not just going to be the mem. It could be that yod too. Okay. That yod right there in the middle of a root tells you that something is being caused. Don't forget that. So please note, there's also another sign of group number 3, active form in this verb. There's an extra yod added to after the second root letter. And it's always going to be after the second root letter. It says only the group number 3 active form has that yod added to it, which is true. It's only for the active form. And let me go show you right quick what I'm talking about. So when it says it's the only one having, the passive form of this doesn't. The passive sign does not have the yod. So that will be a little bit more difficult to identify unless you have familiarized yourself with it. So here you go. Let me see. Causative. No, it's not on this one. It's on, let's see. Come on. Okay, all right. Here you go. All right, so when we're looking at and this is the identifying signs table with a root in it. Okay, the other ones don't have any type of root in it. But this one here is the group number 3, and it's active. As you see right here, there's that yod, and that's it right here. That lets you know that it's active. Okay. That's active. That's causative. It will let you know. Okay. Also, too, when you look in the past tense, you see it right there. When you look in the future tense, you see it right there, but they're only in the active form. That's when someone is doing the action. Okay. When it's active. Passive, it's not there. It's not in any of the passive, nowhere to be found. But if you recognize, you look in this table, you say, well, wait a minute, this looks just like this one. This one looks just like this one. They're using the same thing over here. Okay. They're using this too, and they're using this, and they're using it. Okay. So they got a lot in common. So the only thing I really need to know is whether or not this hey right here is, that's always going to be in the past. The mem is always going to be in the future. I mean, excuse me, the present. And this right here is always going to be in the future. Okay. So group number 3, they have a lot of similarities, but what they share is these letters. So actively and passively, it's always the hey, but it has some different thing underneath it, some different markings. Okay, in the present tense, it's always a mem. Look at that. Okay. All right, so I'll remember, listen, I'll know this. I want to call the process of elimination. I know that this one is active. So let's just settle that right now. These have the 3 dots, either going that way or this one. This can be considered the 2 dots, and this will be the third, and this one would be the 2 dots, and that would be the third. So, they got that in common. But what I'm going to do is, I know from now on that the heys are always going to be in group number 3. And now from here on out, I'm going to accept the fact that 1, 2, or 3 dots like this, I know that's active. And I know that this right here would tell me it's active, that yod right there. Okay. When I look over in the present tense, I know that they all share the mem. But I don't feel like memorizing all these different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to master one of them. And I know that if it ain't this and it's some other one, then I know it's passive. You see what I'm saying? So don't overwhelm your catalog or your library with stuff that you want to make room for other stuff. And at that point, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know what those are. So master this one. Make sure that's the active. And so with your concern, which one is the active one? Oh, that one is. And also too, there you go. That tells you it's active. That yod right there. Plain and simple. Well, if I did it for the present tense, maybe I can do it for the future tense as well. How would I do that? Well, I know they all share the yod in every last one of these examples, but I don't have the bandwidth. I don't want to memorize all this. So let me do this. I'm going to know that there's only 2 things. There's always going to be active and there's going to be passive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to memorize the active, which is only this sound, this right here. I'm going to memorize that. And if it ain't that, then it has to be this for the passive. You guys get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Can.
You understand? So you don't want to overwhelm yourself with all these dots and stuff. Just understand what they mean. And by, sheer memorization of these other ones, you would automatically know, well, those are active and everything else must be passive. Everything else has to be passive, period. Easy. And that's how you memorize this in particular group that way. So that's another way, okay, that you can do that. So you can see there's multiple different ways, and that's just my recommendation. You can do it whatever way you want to do it, but I'm not lazy. I just there's so much to learn. I gotta, leave space for other stuff. Okay. Especially when you get old, you be like, man, I can't, I don't know. All right. So we learned that. And that's pretty much it for your lesson tonight. Okay. That's pretty much it for your lesson. So I'm going to send this over to you. I want you to really focus on the full proof for the method of translating your verbs. The first piece over here, this is, just a lot of them talking. And what they try to do is they walk you through, they intentionally make you make a mistake and then they tell you a reason why, which is cool. I like it. You know what I mean? But, just read through it and you'll see like, oh, okay, I understand. What they're really just saying is be careful when you're transliterating or translating, because sometimes you could take the one dot and you can automatically think that it belongs somewhere. For example, you automatically, okay, this is one dot right here. So you see this on your first letter, and because you'll see a yo with a dot, you automatically think, oh, that's a past tense, when it really is a future tense. So you'll look at that, okay? It'll go over that stuff with you. I wanted you to read that on your own. Any questions? Okay, so next week we'll finish out on chapter number 22. Then after that, next week is going to be a real, I won't say it's going to be challenging, but it is really going to it's going to really make you think, because that one there is going to be really about memorization. And what it'll be dealing with is the letter noon, because the noon it can be used in 4 different ways, and you're going to have to know about it. So that's the challenging one. All right. And then after that, we're going to end the lessons on going over all the Pu'el, and they're going to give you all the proper names of group number 1, 2, 3, and 4, the active and the passive, which are things I've already introduced you to, but you'll be able to see it and it'll be a lot more clear for you. And then after that, we're going to take a brief break. So probably in about 2 weeks, about 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to take a break. And then while we're on break, I'm going to try to come up with what I want, and I think how we should move forward in terms of me teaching you some other grammar basics, teach you some of the grammar on how the structure of the language is outside of this. This is a great foundation, but there's just a lot of things that this book doesn't teach you that other books will. And it talks about, what those other dots inside the letter mean, what they call a Dagesh forte or Dagesh laning. And to be able to separate that, they talk about biconsonants, meaning they got some roots that are twins. Remember, I told you the Hebrew language is about a family. So in families, you have some kids or some children that are twins. So you got to know what they are and how that happens. You also have to know what letters are weak and what are strong. So there are some roots that are strong and there's some that are weak. And then also too, we're going to talk about different conjugations. Conjugation is something that you've already learned. You learned about the past, present, and future. In a grammatical language, that's called conjugations, and meaning when is something being done, tenses. But there's also 5 additional other conjugations that you have to learn, right? And they have to do with commands, desires, infinitive absolutes, all those different types of things. So we can teach you the structure of the language. Once you understand the structure of the language and how, you work with gutturals, things that are weak, what position these letters are in. So it's like a big, huge puzzle, and it's never ending, and you're always going to learn. But this book right here has been really great. I have to say, it's been really great in terms of getting you prepared to even get into this other book that I'm going to be taking us to. So I'm going to develop something from that, and we'll see where we come up with. Okay. Hallelujah.
Toda, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Toda
Praise-
rabba.
Toda, praise Yah. So thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you if Yah's willing. Hallelujah. You guys have a good
Hallelujah.
evening. Shabbat shalom.